Hey guys, welcome back to the seventh part of my series previewing the 2020-21 NBA season. And after talking about some pretty bad teams, some rebuilding teams in the Hornets, the Bulls, and the Cavs, we're finally talking about one of the best young teams and one of the most exciting teams and players in the NBA with the Dallas Mavericks and Luka Doncic. So, last season, the Mavs finished with a 43-32 record. That was good enough to get the 7th seed in the West. And they lost a tough first round series to the Clippers in 6 games. Something notable about that season is Porzingis was injured and he'll miss the start of this season, so that's unfortunate. But this offseason, in the NBA draft, they drafted Josh Green and Tyrell Terry. On draft night, they also traded Seth Curry to the 76ers in exchange for Josh Richardson. And in a very complicated 4-team deal, they gave away DeLon Wright and Justin Jackson in exchange for James Johnson. Okay, so their key player is obviously Luka Doncic, who last year went from strength to strength, winning Rookie of the Year in his first season, and last year averaging an astounding almost 29 points, more than 9 rebounds, and almost 9 assists. So 29, 9, and 9. Those are pretty impressive numbers, especially for a second-year player in Luka. And that was just really impressive from him. And he was an MVP candidate for parts of the year. And I think he's definitely one of the favorites to win it this year. Just a great playmaker and passer. Even though his stats don't show it, as he wasn't very particularly efficient, still a very good 3-point shooter. It's like the thing with James Harden. Like, we all know James Harden is a really good 3-point shooter, but he never shoots over 38% or gets to 40% from 3 just because of the sheer volume and difficulty of the shots he takes. It's a bit the same thing with Luka Doncic, where we know he's a really good shooter, but his stats, like his efficiency, doesn't show it. But just really impressive overall from Luka, making the first team, making the All-Star team, taking the Mavs to the playoffs. And he had a really good year, and he's definitely their best player and could be one of the best players in the NBA for not only next year, but the coming decade. Okay, so a projected lineup. This is going to be if everyone is healthy, because obviously Porzingis is going to be out for the start of the year. But Luka Doncic, Tim Hardaway Jr., Josh Richardson, Kristaps Porzingis, and Dwight Powell. So I just talked about Luka. For Tim Hardaway Jr., he's a pretty decent, I think he'll be about the 3rd or 4th option on this team. Just a really good 3-point shooter. Averaged 16 points a game last season, 40% from 3. Really helps with their scoring and their best offense in history, which they had last year. And he was a big part of that, and he's a really good offensive player. And then the new guy, Josh Richardson, who they traded for, bit of an offensive downgrade on Seth Curry, but is still a good offensive player, averaged about 14 points, can shoot the 3, but where he'll really help them out is with their perimeter defense. Being the best offense ever last season, there's a reason they weren't a better team, and that was defense, and Josh Richardson will definitely help them solve that. Well, not completely solve that issue, but will definitely help them out a lot on that end of the floor because he's a good defender. And then Kristaps Porzingis averaged about 20 points and 10 rebounds last season, but he doesn't do it the normal way a big man gets 20 and 10. He does it shooting threes, playing great interior defense with his unique offensive skill set, the unicorn. So hopefully he can get back from injury, and injuries have been a big problem for him, and hopefully he can stay injury-free once he comes back this season and for the rest of his career, because he is such a talented player, but with his frame, he is very injury-prone, so that's really a worry with a player like him. And in that center, they could go a couple of different ways with Maxi Kleber, but I've gone with Dwight Powell, just a classic center, modern center who can't shoot threes, just rim run, dunk, play a bit of defense, grab boards. That's sort of what most centers do in the NBA nowadays, and Dwight Powell can definitely do that for you. He was injured for the back end of last season, but I think he'll be back this season. Off the bench, it's a bit questionable. Like, they have a lot of pretty good players, but I'm not sure who exactly will be playing. But backup point guard Jalen Brunson averaged about 8 points last season, and just he's a good point guard. Puts in a lot of effort, plays hard. He is undersized, but makes up for that with his effort. And then they also have JJ Barea, who is a Mavericks legend, and he can sign as many one-year deals as he wants to play, and he'll play in Dallas till he retires, I presume. At the shooting guard, the rookies Tyrell Terry and Josh Green, and also Trey Burke. Burke is a really good three-point shooter, averaged about 12 points last season, and shot well from three on 7 attempts a game. So he can really be something for them, coming off the bench, providing that scoring, handling the ball a bit, just that type of thing. And then backup small forward, Dorian Finney-Smith, was probably their best defender last year in the Clippers series. He was put on Paul George a bit and really did a good job there. Just a really good defender who isn't a terrible offensive player, and he'll still be a very important player for them. And if it's crunch time, he might move into the starting lineup if they shift Porzingis over to the 5. At small forward, James Johnson. I mean, he's a really intimidating player for them, and I think that's the thought with trading them. Obviously, with Marcus Morris, the one that played for the Clippers last year, being really physical with Luka, he's kind of going to be Luka's bodyguard, and you do not want to mess with James Johnson. So I think that's mostly what he's there for, just playing hard, being intimidating the other team. Averaged about 8 points last season, just that sort of thing. And then at the center, they have quite a few options. Maxi Kleber is a player I really like. He was tasked with guarding Kawhi Leonard in the Clippers season. Averaged about 9 points a game. I think he's a decent player off the bench, pretty good defender, and I'm a big fan of his. And they also have Boban, of course. We all love Boban, just being really tall and happy and a nice guy. So they still have him, which is great. And then Willie Cauley-Stein, they traded for him when Dwight Powell got injured last season. Don't know how much he's going to play with Dwight Powell coming back. So the positives with this team is they have Luka Doncic and everything he does, and he might win MVP this season. Just a really good player who is really good. Also, their offense, best offense ever last season. They could be even better this season if Luka takes another leap and becomes more efficient. Obviously, they lost Seth Curry, but Josh Richardson sort of makes up for that. And then with Porzingis being injured for the start of the season, maybe they won't be as good offensively, but they'll still be really good and one of the best offenses in the leagues. Something else is their improved defense from last year. Not a great defensive team last year. Got in Josh Richardson. Probably be a bit better this year. And that was a big thing they changed this offseason. But something else they did this offseason was they have a max slot next season, and they've put themselves in a nice position to get a max free agent, whether it be Giannis or Kawhi or someone else. They're really going to be a serious threat to get a max player next free agency with Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. Some of the negatives with this team, or stuff that worries me, is injuries, of course. Porzingis is an injury-prone player, obviously going to be injured for the start of the season, and I'm just worried about his health, short and long term. Also, if Luka gets injured, they're kind of screwed, but I'd say that's it for like every team. Like if your best player gets injured, you're not going to be as good, obviously. Something else is a secondary ball handler. I mean, they kind of have it between Josh Richardson and Jalen Brunson, but I'd like to see Luka move off ball even more, get his efficiency up and get them some easier shots. Yeah, secondary ball handler slash playmaker. And then obviously defense, they're going to be better than last season, but still not going to be great with Doncic and Hardaway not being great defenders. So we'll see about that, how good they are. It remains to be seen. Where do I think they could finish? Probably between the 3rd and 7th seed in the West. I'm going to say they're going to be the 5th seed. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.